Sébastien and Simon today for some big announcement and important discussion and knowledge sharing. So so this is a special post for me, I would say. I know I've been running it since the beginning of the year now as PosterLab CEO. The main goal of this post was actually to share knowledge about how to collaborate, how to accelerate innovation, especially with innovation partners, which is, let's say, more than ever, the most important things we need to address as a society as a whole. And today I'm very important to, let's say, to have Simon as a guest and also to discuss with each other, because as you may have read, let's say, Wazoku has acquired PosterLab, and we are going to deep dive in the topic today. So for those of us that do not know yet PosterLab, and Simon will explain Wazoku as well. So PosterLab, what we do is that we are accelerating innovation by helping large manufacturing organizations to be more mature at their collaboration. So what it means is that every collaboration right now means a lot of different partners. And if you want, let's say, to collaborate well and to go to market fast, what is important is that you propose an easy way to your partners to show them how you're going to collaborate. So what kind of workflows you are going to work together? Who is, let's say, in the place? What are the capabilities that are going to be shared? So this mapping of the ecosystem of innovation partners, as well as workflows being seen by other players, make it easier, let's say, to accelerate innovation. What it means is about executing collaboration in a systematic manner. And this is what we do by PosterLab. So let's go straight in the discussion. So maybe Simon, a few words, and then let's explain a bit more what is the rationale behind this acquisition.
Thanks, Sébastien. And yeah, first of all, congratulations, I guess, all around. It's always a big, exciting day when your business is acquired, and for me, it's an exciting day when we acquire an exciting business as well. So thank you. And for those of you that don't know me, I'm Simon Hill. I'm the CEO, founder of Wazoku. For people that do not know Wazoku, you should. But we're a global ecosystem builder for innovation. So we help organizations to do what we think is most important, which is to connect all the disparate dots around our innovation activities and programs across our organizations, to help make better informed decisions and to enable innovation at scale. I think that one of the challenges we face as organizations is that we have tended to view innovation as a thing with a big I, and actually it is, right? But it's also lots and lots of little things with a little I as well. And increasingly in a world of digital transformation, of AI and intelligent automation and external partnerships and collaboration being a very key part of all of that, it is the purvey of the many, not the few, right? And so how do we connect those dots from a system point of view, much like we've done in many other parts of our organization cross-functionally, is really the leap that innovation teams and innovation as a concept inside large organizations is making. And Wazoku sits at the forefront of driving that innovation at scale, ecosystem-based thinking approach, basically. So an exciting piece of the jigsaw puzzles added with PosterLab. And Sébastien and I have known each other for a little while, and I'm excited to get together and talk a bit about why and what next, right?
Exactly. Thank you much, Simon, for this intro about Wazoku. So talking about the why, I mean, we talked a lot together about, remember this, we had this discussion, okay, what is innovation? What is the goal of innovation? How is innovation being made today? And we talked about this idea about front-end innovation, back-end innovation, ideation, execution. And we said, okay, it makes sense to have this kind of the full cycle from ID to market in one, let's say, one journey, but also having all the innovation partners around this journey, these two main milestones. So what's your thinking about this, Simon?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it already, I think, in my introduction in terms of the innovation at scale piece, right? I think that there are a very complicated set of different processes and activities that are happening inside and beyond the boundaries of our organizations that are both being impacted by change and also seeking to deliver change from a value creation perspective, right? And at the heart and soul of where innovation sits, it's about capturing and creating value, right? That value might be in terms of more efficient ways of doing things, or it might be about new value creation. And I do take a very expansive definition of that from a philosophical and a business perspective, right? No ideas should exist in a vacuum. Innovation teams shouldn't exist in a vacuum, and we need to combine the three horizon thinking, the explore exploit thinking of our organizations to create a unique superpower. If you augment that with your external ecosystem, both your known ecosystem and the potential ecosystem that you could work with, which is both startups and universities and research organizations and NGOs and governments, but also the global crowd, right? This is the fifth acquisition that we'll have done in 3 years. The first one we did was to acquire an incentive that added this incredible global crowd of hundreds of thousands of innovators, inventors, and more. And as you start to piece that ecosystem together, enabled by intelligent automation, enabled by AI, enabled by joined up thinking, then you unleash a real superpower, right? And I think that's the bit, right? Organizations have fragments of this information, very, very difficult for most people to get hold of. But now we're in a position where we can start to pull that together, help organizations to see round corners, to connect dots that are otherwise not being connected, and get to value quicker, right? And that's the ultimate piece of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, back on what you're saying, I mean, I have a lot of discussion with senior R&D directors or VPs from large manufacturing organizations, and all of them came to the conclusion that because of the fact that innovation is becoming more complex, in the sense that they don't have all the solution internally, they are looking for ways to better integrate their innovation partners, or to better onboard their innovation partners early in the discussion, maybe even at the ID stage. Okay, we have this idea, you are filling some gaps, but a lot of them do not know how to actually execute it at scale. So do you have maybe going deeper into the discussion, do you have some tips or advices maybe where to start? I mean, thinking about Wazoku, for example.
Well, I think if I just lean back on your previous point, which I didn't probably fully address in terms of connecting the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel, or the two ends of the process, which I think are actually more virtuous and circular than necessarily a funnel metaphor lends itself to. Like, I just don't think innovation is a funnel fundamentally, and it doesn't work in the at scale piece. But also because ideas can be circulated across all different bits of the business, and the same idea might add value for one department in one way and a different department in a different way. Or no value today and lots of value tomorrow, right? And so they're more nuanced things than a funnel would imply them to be, and they're more circular than perhaps a funnel would imply them to be as well. The other piece of this, I think, though, is a really fundamental paradigm shift from silo, functional, closed business thinking into more open, co-creative business thinking, which is a harder shift for people to make, right? We've been trained as subject matter experts. We've been structured in org design models in a way that, and we're incentivized quite frequently to conform to that normality as well. But there's a lot of evidence that suggests that is not the most effective way of driving organizational change, of driving innovation, right? Driving value out into the marketplace. And as you eloquently said in your introduction, this isn't just about, increasing share price or making our products better, faster, and smarter, right? It's actually about doing the right thing because the world needs us to do the right thing, right? It's an increasingly volatile, uncertain marketplace that we exist in. And so anything we can do to accelerate that pace of change, not just because we should, but because the world really, really needs us to, right? And in a myriad of different areas as well. And so I think we have a duty as innovators to be able to help to facilitate all of that. So that's just a philosophical point, I think, as much as anything. But there is a shift. The author and public speaker Greg Sattel, who you may have spoken to in one of your calls or whatever, draws quite an interesting analogy in one of his books, I think it's Cascades or something, to the difference between the East Coast of the US and the West Coast of the US, and like why did the West Coast prosper more than the East Coast? And part of his conclusion is that the East Coast was much more closed, and that the West Coast was very much driven on this ethos of open source, open collaboration, open, right? And so and as the world, has seen the growth in value creation and prosperity and others between those two models, you've seen a bit of a shift coming. So I think as a species, we are getting better at this, but we're still programmatically quite closed, right? We're quite conservative, quite risk averse. And so there's a mindset shift that has to come in our ways of working, right? I don't know. I feel like I'm one question behind you all the time at the moment, but just in addressing some of that, I think just to dive in a little bit on the question you actually asked me before I started on my soapbox. The other philosophy that we really believe in is a concept that, again, we acquired through the Incentive acquisition, but very much sits at the heart of who Wazoku's been since the day that I started it, which is this concept of challenge-driven innovation, right? Really spending time to understand the problem that you're trying to solve. And so from an ideation perspective, you can take two approaches. You can ask for ideas, unstructured, and get a big pile of a mess. You can do the same in ecosystem land, right? I've seen it for the last few years. Startups were on vogue. We must go gather some startups into our ecosystem. But unless you know what you want to do with them, you're just the magpie collecting shiny objects, right? And eventually you're gonna struggle. If you have no mechanism by which to track or understand what you're doing with them, then if you do nothing with them, then nobody else will ever know that they even existed in the organization. And so you create lots of duplication of efforts, lots of frustration for everybody involved, and basically no value, right? And so there's a huge amount that can come from really thinking about what is the problem that we're trying to solve, right? What is the opportunity, the value that we are trying to create here? Align that to the jobs to be done methodology, and then start to adopt the right approach, the right principles for getting that through an ideate, incubate, scale process, or a fail fast process as quickly as possible, but also make it open. Make sure that whatever you do, the next person that comes along that has a similar need can discover and pick up where you left off, so that you don't start from zero each time. And that is a symbiotic, knowledge-based ecosystem that's working in the right way, and will build value over time far greater and far more exponentially than the ad hoc, piecemeal, disjointed approach that is traditionally adopted still today.
Yeah, I agree with you. Make me think about some of the guys out there, I'd say, that are kind of defining as kind of not early adopters, but that understood the power of what you just said. They told me, Sébastien, in this world today, from a strategic corporate standpoint, is that we want to be perceived as a partner of choice. Because we know the only way we can, they say, be better, faster than the market is also by attracting the right capability and the right resources. So that's one thing. How can I become a partner of choice? So it's about onboarding, showing the way you are going to work together, having systematic things you can replicate. But it's also about what you said. When you work in a collaboration mode, you should also find ways to map the knowledge being generated. Because if you are in a fail fast, that is very good, by the way, you need to learn, but you need to also kind of map this knowledge so that next time something is going to go in that direction, you need to find this knowledge very easily across the board so that people can tap in this knowledge. And for me, this is also about this ecosystem thinking is we need to be a partner of choice as an organization to attract the best. But at the same time, when we work with these people in a systematic manner, we need to track the knowledge being generated. So I don't know if you have any also reflection on that, on how can you also learn as an organization to be mature across by replicating this and being potentially better than the other one. For me, it's a competitive advantage, to be straightforward.
I think it's a huge competitive advantage, and it'll continue to build and evolve. I think it's an exponential competitive advantage as well, because what we don't know and what the machine-led intelligent automation evolution, revolution, however you want to think about it, will afford those businesses that have a more open, centralized data set is an increased ability to see around corners, right? To match data that they didn't necessarily see or understand from a human perspective, because there's just so much of it, and a lot of it's unstructured in a variety of different ways. And that's the type of stuff that we wrestle with every day, right? You know, the ideas are not like anything else. They're human generated with a bit of machine generation maybe on top of them. They're written in corporate speak. They apply to a myriad of different topics. And so you can't standardize them into a web form easily. You can't standardize them, therefore, to train the machine into what they are. And we spent years building and training models to start to help to do that, so you can create more standardized data to get to this point where you can see around corners, right? If you think about the work that we'll be doing in our combined prop going forward, you know, people might say, well, I've got places to track this stuff. Great, but what are you doing with it? A little bit of upward reporting, but no one, it's not dynamic. Nobody's going to come and use that from a discovery point of view to have that aha moment of like, oh, we do stuff with them, maybe we could do this here. And fail fast is only useful if you fail forward and learn fast the next time, right? And that's the piece of it. But if it's locked away in a notebook or an Excel file, or quite frankly, even SharePoint, right, it's not really going to get discovered. And so you've got to get it in a place that's actually, the machine's going to help you with that, and it's going to connect those dots for you and make sure that you know, where I left off and I've gone now and I've gone to do a different job and I'm not focused on it anymore, and you walk in the door and pick it up and know nothing about what's happened before, that it's not a chance encounter in SharePoint that drives you to that or anything else. It's actually just easy for you to do, right? And so that's the future direction. That's where we've got to get to. And until we can, it's all serendipity based, this, right? And I think that I'm very surprised, disappointed, but I guess also hopeful that, you know, we're only as far through this as we are in terms of our ability to map knowledge and map our innovation journeys and our ecosystems inside these large organizations, because it's a huge opportunity lost. But I guess that means it's all in front of us, right? And there's a lot of opportunity to do good stuff going forward. And 2023, 2024 is as good a time as ever for that, because of the breakthroughs we've made in large language models and the ability, therefore, to train computers to be able to augment the great stuff that we're doing. And because, you know, we've invested in now 5 different businesses that we're putting together in something that's going to really help the world to do this at scale as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, you know, I'm thinking about my corporate days when I was innovation manager, and I was not the only one, but we were more or less always starting from scratch. Let's say we had a new project. We were going, okay, Sébastien, can you check if we can go into this space? I was starting from scratch every time. I was building the ecosystem, I was checking the value prop, putting the process, and again, and every one of us was doing this. But if you think about, let's say, tomorrow, which is the question I'm usually asking to my guests at the end of the course, is what is going to be tomorrow? Is that if we can imagine a world where people innovate, saying, okay, this is what I have in mind, let me check what we did. What are the people that we have in our ecosystem that are somehow related to this? Who are my colleagues that work on this? What did we do? So you do your kind of state-of-the-art analysis that back in the day was like over and over again, but it's a much more efficient way. So, okay, what have we done? Who are the players? Who is people? And then you go to these people. Usually, back in the day, it was taking me at least 3 months to do this exercise.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is 3 months lost, and potentially this is the quality of the output is certainly not as good as if you have this proper way to do it systematically.
No, exactly. And especially if you spend a little bit of time up front, as I said, on really framing the problem, really thinking about what it is, right? There's this tendency we have to race to solutions mode before we've really defined the problem, which, you know, is probably more exciting mode to be in, but all you end up doing is solving the wrong problem half the time, right? And or getting to a point that you can't get future funding for because it was the wrong problem, or because you didn't do the work to get the buy-in from the problem owners in the right way to move yourself forward. And we get stuck in this valley that we can't get out of, even if the idea is great, because you've got to do that upfront work. And I think that it's blindingly obvious when you say it out loud, but it's so poorly executed upon. And that's the other bits of what we've been buying and building as well, right? This ability to do predictive foresights and trends understanding, the ability to then turn that into really good challenge statements from the organizational perspective, to map it to organizational strategy and road mapping in the right way. and then to be able to track and map your ecosystem, all powered through this concept of, you know, challenge-driven innovation and an innovation at scale data set that keeps learning and keeps building from an organizational perspective. So, you know, it's another journey. I hopefully tomorrow is a little bit better than today, right? And we get this, but it's up to companies. They've got to want to do this from an organizational level. And, you know, and I still see this really big tension between centralized and decentralized innovation, big I, little I. Who owns it? Where does it sit? How important is it to people? Well, it's as important as the future of your organization. So you've got to figure out the answer to where does it sit and how important is it at the right part of the organization as quickly as possible, because busy, well-intentioned people in the middle of the business are pulling it to pieces because they haven't got the time or the capacity to do enough with it. And it's not their fault, right? It's the other way. It's got to be top down, this push, and recognize that the data is what's key. The processes can flow off the back of it and everything else. And so, you know, that's my hope for 2024, is that we see more enlightened leaders who understand that, you know, the consequences of not centralizing this are going to be vast, and the ones that get it right are going to have this exponential opportunity in front of them. The ones that don't are going to find it very difficult to play catch up afterwards.
Yeah, and we know these guys. I mean, you and me, we've been talking to these guys that are kind of the forefront of the game, that understood, let's say, the value of this, a strategic advantage to move fast on this one. I mean, a couple of big chemical players we talk to, and others that you and me know them. So this is moving. I mean, this is moving. People are seeing that competition is launching faster, some innovation. You have also, let's say, some carryover from the pharma world. You know, the pharma world is super good in this thing, and this is now, let's say, penetrating the other industries. So I mean, I know I'm biased, and we are biased, both of us. But I mean, this, when you look at let's say the rationale behind the early adopters moves, I'm pretty sure the market would follow. It would take time, sure, but things are going to change, and things are changing in the right direction. Simon, we are at the end of the pearls. I thank you for. I'm super happy. Let's say the journey continue with Wazoku. You guys are very professional. I told you. I mean, I talked with several of your team. Our customers are now with you, and the platform is being integrated. So I'm super much looking forward for that. And for the audience, thank you again for listening. For the one that are going to listen afterwards, if you want to know more about Wazoku, you go to Simon. I mean, he is super knowledgeable, as you can see. He's going to be more than happy to answer your question and share his experience. Thank you very much for Simon, and we keep in touch, obviously.
Thanks, Sébastien. Thanks, everyone.